That night, the full moon shone brightly in the sky over Semarang. A thin mist covered the forest at the edge of the village, making the atmosphere even more eerie. Tall trees with branches reaching like giant hands stood proudly in the darkness. Among these trees, an ancient banyan tree stood firm, its roots sprawling across the ground like snakes winding around. Inside the hollow of the banyan tree, the figure of Wewe Gombel hid. A pale-faced woman with long, tangled black hair, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark, her face partially obscured by the shadows. In her arms was a small child, sitting silently, trembling with fear, his eyes vacant. The child, who had just disappeared from the village, was tightly embraced by this ghostly figure, as though he was hers. Meanwhile, below the banyan tree, a group of villagers holding torches searched for the missing child. They moved cautiously, calling out the child's name. Their voices echoed through the trees, but all that could be heard in response was the sound of the wind whispering and the rustling of leaves. One of the villagers, Sastro, known for his courage, walked ahead of the group. He held a tall torch high in one hand and a machete in the other. "My child, if you hear me, answer me," he shouted, his voice hoarse with panic and exhaustion. But there was no answer. Wewe Gombel peered out from the hollow of the tree. A strange smile spread across her pale face. She knew that the villagers wouldn't find child if she didn't want them to. A faint, eerie laugh escaped from lips, barely audible, enough to make one of the villagers stop in his tracks. "Did you hear that?" asked a woman holding a torch, her face full of fear. The others looked at each other in confusion. Sastro waved his hand, signaling them to keep moving forward. From within the tree, Wewe Gombel's glowing eyes watched as she gently cradled the child. The child whimpered faintly, but his cries were silenced by her soft humming, a lullaby that sounded like the wind carrying message from another world. The villagers got closer to the banyan tree. One of them stopped and looked closely at the tree, furrowing his brow. "There's something there," he whispered. But before he could approach, a strong gust of wind blew, snuffing out some of the torches. The villagers panicked and tried to relight them. In the chaos, Wewe Gombel's soft laugh echoed louder, causing them to freeze in place. Sastro stared at the tree, his eyes sharp. He knew something was wrong, but before he could act, the wind howled again. A ccmped by the sound of a baby crying. The sound sent a chill down his spine. "This is not human," he muttered quietly. Inside the tree, Wewe Gombel smiled in satisfaction. With a single movement, she pulled the child deeper into the darkness. The villagers were unaware that the child they were searching for was right in front of them, hidden behind the shadow of the great banyan tree. By the time morning came, the forest was silent again. The child was found at the edge of the village, confused but unharmed. No one knew what happened that night, but for those brave enough to remember, the sound of Wewe Gombel's laugh would forever haunt their nightmares.